Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. It's time for another $40 Kubey. This is the Thalia. Comes in 7 different versions, either a satin blade or a blackwash blade, and a number of different handle colors. White Mountain Knives has got 6 of the versions. There's one even a denim G10 with a blackwash blade. Remember, at White Mountain Knives you save 10% with our coupon code CCE. And you put that in when you check out and you get 10% off everything that you buy there. So that makes it 36 American dollars. That's about 47 Canadian dollars. There is one Kubey store that's got this. That's knifeglobal.com for $40. KubeyKnives.com has got it for $50. So if you're in Europe or somewhere else and you don't want to buy from White Mountain Knives, go to Knife Global, and I think they've got all 7 colors. Maybe not all in stock, but they've got them for $40. So that's the better place to get it if you're not able to get it from White Mountain Knives. Without any further ado, let's take a good close look at this $40 knife. Let's begin with our size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1. Line up those pivot pins. Yeah, it's a bit smaller, not a lot smaller. It's a little bit bigger, this way, but it's close. It's not that much smaller. We've got about 3 1/4 inches on this blade, and we're going to go over all the detailed specs a little bit later on in this video. Some people are saying that this is a full flat grind. It's not a full flat grind. If you take a close look, the grind ends right there. The grind line would go right through the middle of this elongated hole, and the spine is flat up there, and I just put marker on it. So it's almost a full flat grind, not quite. We've got a drop point blade here, a nice swedge there. So the tip is not particularly designed for piercing, but it can do some basic piercing tasks. This high flat grind and this big bevel and big belly here is great for slicing and cutting, and it does those jobs very, very well indeed. We've got a plunge here that's really gradual, which is why they've got this huge sharpness choil. The plunge ends right about where the tip of my pen is. You can sharpen right to the end, no problem. I'm not fond of these kind of plunges. I'd rather have a really quick plunge where it gets from the ricasso to the bevel, in a very small space. That way I could have the cutting edge come closer to where my hands are. That's too small for me to do a forward grip. I'm going to end up cutting my finger on the heel of the blade right there. So it looks kind of nice having that gradual transition that you can't really see exactly where it is, but I'd prefer it different. If you like it like this, hey, great, you like it like this. We've got that huge hole there in that sort of odd shape. It's almost a triangle kind of shape with rounded corners. It works well for flicking. We've got a chamfered edge in that hole, but it's very easy to get your finger in there and deploy that blade. No problem at all. Of course, we've also got a front flipper sticking out wide a ways there. Easy to get your thumb around there and flick that knife. Now, if you choose another way, reach over and stuff, if you can do that, that's fine. But the action works really well. And yeah, it's an ambidextrous knife. I'll show you later on. Well, right now, sure. Pocket clip holes right there. So the pocket clip can go on either side. But we're still talking about the blade, so let's finish that off first. The spine of the blade is also chamfered, and then we've got this long stretch jimping, which I quite like. The jimping is almost ideal. It's grippy enough to be effective, but it's not so grippy that it's annoying, and I like that it goes over a long ways. Finally, we've got a polished satin finish, and that's why, you see marks on it. Let me wipe it off a little bit here. Hopefully I got a clean spot on this cloth to wipe it off with. And yeah, it's a pretty nice, I still got some spots left by the name where it says Kubey. It's a pretty nice finish on that. I'd rather have stonewash, but it's okay. On this side, you can really see how nice that is. And it is a polished satin finish. The badging, very tiny D2 right up there. And on this side, we've got Kubey on the plunge. There really isn't another place they could have put it. Thankfully, it's nice and small. So that's pretty much the blade. About the action here, we've got the classic Kubey pivot pin, at least on the budget versions, with the KB right there. So it's a non-spinning pivot pin, T8 screw hole right there, And we've got ball bearings in here, and we'll take it apart a little bit later on. Lock up, it's almost exactly where I like a new knife to be, which is great. No blade play, side to side, up and down. The alignment when it's closed, it's not perfect. It's a little bit on this pocket clip side right now, but pretty close to down the middle, so not bad. Quite like that. That's a very nice action. The lock release, we've got a little bit of a cutaway here. There's enough access to the lock arm. It's got the jimping or bumping on the top edge of the lock arm, but it's not sharp. It's easy to get your thumb in there and disengage that lock. Either right-handed or left-handed, it works just fine. So, happy with everything going on in that section. The shape of the handle. We've got flat slab G10, the nice texture on it, chamfered all the way around, almost a straight back. There's a little bit of a curve there. And then we've got this sort of wedge-shaped where it just gets bigger and bigger at the end, and it's very comfortable in my hand. The palm of my hand, where it goes from the thin at the center and starts getting fat, ends up being right at the end of the handle there, and it's just comfortable. It just sits in my hand, either hand, very, very well. I'm very happy with that. We've got open pillar construction with those hourglass-shaped pins, flush T8 screws here, which I'm very fond of. Lanyard hole placement is pretty good. They chamfered it, and of course, I already mentioned the pocket clip holes right there. On this side, you can see the pocket clip. We have T6 flush screws in here, which I don't like T6 screws, but you're probably only going to move it once if you're a lefty. If you're right-handed, you're never going to move it. And, well, there's some lint stuck underneath there. Let me get that out. And since you're not going to move that pocket clip, it can be forgiven to have flush T6 screws. At least they're flush. The pocket clip's not too big this way, which is good. Comes close to the end, not quite sticking out, so it's almost full flat top here on the end of the pocket clip. And let's see how well it goes in and out of a pocket. That edge, like I pointed out, climbs over right away. You go full depth. There's still freedom up here. You could have even thicker pockets if you wanted to, thicker material there. And it mostly hides the knife. You can see a little bit of the knife there sticking out, but not a lot. If you had the denim version, it might match even better. So I'm happy with this thing. The pocket clip is not hot in the hand, it's not in the way, and it works. How well does this thing cut? I already mentioned it in passing. It cuts very well. My tests were great. It's thin behind the edge. The grind angles from the factory are okay. They're around 20 degrees. So that's quite good. With this D2, I'd probably make it 18 degrees per side on a knife like this. That could probably be happening after I'm done testing with it. If I choose to keep this knife, I'm not quite sure. I really like Kubey knives. They're right in my price range of what I like. They're taking over from, I used to really like Ganzo. It was one of my favorite budget knives. But this $40 series from Kubey, it's really, really good. I'm very happy with it. Are you curious how it's actually constructed? Let's take it apart. Came out just fine. There's no Loctite on this pivot screw. There is a little bit of blue on these body screws, but they didn't hold tight at all. But you can see from the close-up of these little screws, they are very good quality screws, and I'm very happy with it. The screws fit in with the head of the screwdriver very well, and there's just a very tiniest bit of play in there, and they sink in nice and deep, so I'm very happy with those. Same thing here with this one. It sinks in quite well. A little bit more play than the body screws, but there's nothing wrong with those screws. We've got phosphor bronze cages with ceramic ball bearings, and there's 9 ball bearings on either side. Quite nice. And here you can see how much skeletonizing they put in this thing, and it's all soft. There's no sharp edges anywhere on the handle. Fairly well made. How does the pivot pin keep from spinning? It's the same thing that Civivi's doing. There's a notch in the pin right here, and there's a protrusion here on this end, and that keeps the pivot screw from spinning. It just locks in place once it's seated down properly, and you get the advantages of a full rounded circle, not a D-shaped interrupted circle, and so that the knife pivots on there as best as it possibly can. Fairly well made. Oh, by the way, ceramic detent ball as well. Good construction. Let's put it back together and go on with all the specs and measurements and stuff. The weight of this knife, it's 113 grams. That's 4 ounces even. The factory sharpness, I got a score of 125 best in my testing. It's a little bit better than average, not much, just a little bit. The length of the cutting edge, 80.7 millimeters, 3.18 inches. Blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, 82.6 millimeters, 3.25 inches. Thickness of this blade, 3.05 millimeters, 0.12 inches. So just the tiniest bit under 1/8 of an inch. Blade depth, the widest point right about there, 30.2 millimeters, 1.19 inches. How thick is it behind the grind? Again, measured in 3 places, 0.39 millimeters, 15.5 thousandths of an inch thin. Very nice. Grind angles, this side's got an average score of 21.2 degrees, this side 19.1 degrees. This side started at 19.8, went to 18.3, that's 1.5 degrees change. This side started at 22.3, ended at 20.2, that's 2.1 degrees change along the length. That's actually quite a bit better than average. The handle length, 114.8 millimeters, 4.52 inches. The grip area, and I measured it into this angled section back here. That's about 10 centimeters, 4 inches. A little bit less if you only count up to where my thumbnail is right now over here. The thickness of the handle, 12.67 millimeters, 0.499 of an inch. So yeah, 1/2 inch thick. The handle depth within the grip area, the widest point's right there, 31.2 millimeters, 1.23 inches. When the knife is closed, the widest point's right there in the middle, 33.8 millimeters, 1.33 inches. And the total length of this knife, I didn't make the inches again, 197 millimeters. What do I think of this thing? I think it's good for 40 bucks. It's a nice knife. And now that I lubricated it with my nice gunny glide that I've shown in the last several videos, the action's even smoother. It's not what some people call drop shutty, but it's nice. You know, with no blade play or anything, good smooth action, easy to activate, good lockup, very good blade alignment, not perfect, but very good. Nice pocket clip, high quality T8 screws, which I really like. And even the T6 screws here are pretty good. I got a T6 handy right here. Just a little bit of play there. See that wiggle? Not much play in the T6 screws back here. So yeah, overall, it's quite nice. The big con on this, well, it's not big, it's a small con. The con that is the biggest for me is this plunge sharpness choil area. I wish that that plunge was quicker so that I could have more edge closer to my handle. Or that they would have made this a proper forward choil. The Thalia by Kubey, model number KU331, might be easier to remember than the name of it, eh? Thanks for watching, my friends. Huge shout out to my supporters, my financial supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. I appreciate it a lot. You guys do a lot for me. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.